Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Billy Skelli-Cohen, CEO of the stunning boutique hotel company Boldness. Coming up on today's show, Billy reveals the ultimate skill set for coming on a podcast.
I'm someone who can talk a lot.
Phil struggles with his words.
There's an inevitability.
And Billy is a touch harsh on Phil.
That is the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
All that and so much more as I chat through Billy's epic journey so far, along with learning a lot more about Boldness. It was so awesome to get some time with Billy. He's got a unique route into hospitality and our chat is rammed with lessons all the way through. So please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy. And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Billy Skelli-Cohen.
Hi Phil, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good to be here with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Where do we find you today? Where are you based?
You are finding me in my house in Amsterdam, which has been a pretty rare occasion the past few months.
Right.
But my family and I are moving to the south of France in a couple of weeks now. So.
Ah, okay. Well, I wonder if there's a reason for that, Billy.
Yeah, there just might be.
Yes, well, just tell the world what it is that you actually do, and that will probably give real context to why you might be in the midst of a relocation.
So currently I am the CEO of Boldness, which is a French hotel group with 11 hotels across France, Switzerland, and Ibiza.
Very good, very good. Yeah, well, and very, very interested to explore that because I think I remember seeing a post from you, I think maybe a few months back, maybe when you announced actually that you joined the company, that this is going to be one of the fastest growing boutique hotel companies in Europe.
Did I really say that?
I think so. Yeah, you put yourself under pressure. Yeah. Get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Boldness has been on a really, I'm catching the group on what's already been an exciting adventure, right? The group was birthed in the French Alps about 10 years ago. At the time, it was called Hôtel Deo. And then Boldness was created soon after new investors came in, KSL Capital Partners, to kind of come in and kind of charge and help the business grow. And the business has doubled in size in the past 3 years, right? Which is not nothing in this space. So
Sure.
Gone from 5 hotels to 11 hotels. The start of this year has really been about looking inwards. We have a lot to do to kind of, be as great as we want to be as a hotel group and provide the employee and guest experience that we want to provide. And we've had 2 big projects that we've just opened, one in Wengem in Switzerland, our first hotel in Switzerland in this magnificent little village. And then, our landmark hotel, the Roche Rouge in Saint Raphael, which is kind of this magical spot right on the Mediterranean. We've added a new wing and kind of more programming and F&B outlets, and that's also just reopened. So we've been busy for the start of the year with our own portfolio, but obviously now looking to continue growing.
Yeah, and I suppose part of any kind of successful growth is always centered around consolidation of existing as well, right? You can't forget what you've already got, and also to make that as good as it can be is probably part of the wider strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said this. No matter what environment I've been in, right? Growing is important in a business like ours. Not at the cost of not doing great with what we already have, right? Which is not, we have this amazing portfolio of hotels, and The teams have been working incredibly hard in recent years to create some magic in those hotels through a lot of capex and repositioning and marketing campaign and operations and all kinds of different things. And as you grew up as a hotel group, you have to fine tune all of that, right? And when you're going kind of at a million miles an hour as a young hotel group, you need to kind of keep learning and evolving, and that's a lot of what this year has been about so
Yeah,
far.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember from our icebreaker call a few weeks back, you were definitely in, with all due respect to your house in Amsterdam, a way more interesting location. I think you joined the call in one of your hotel bedrooms, which just looks straight out to the Mediterranean.
Yeah, it might have been in Rush Rouge maybe or Cap Long. I don't remember when we did the call, but yeah, I mean, listen, it's a privilege, right, to be part of a group like this. We have these really special hotels in extraordinary destinations, right, and have really approached each one of these projects, embracing, respecting, and trying to really bring our surroundings as kind of part of the experience when you stay in one of our hotels and reconnecting with nature, whether it's in Ibiza or Roche Rouge, where that connection is with the Mediterranean, whether it's in Provence, where you're in kind of this gorgeous nature, or our hotels in the French of the Swiss Alps, where you have kind of these breathtaking mountain moments, whether you're enjoying them in the winter or the summer.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just anybody can go onto your website and have a look at some of the properties. I mean, the locations are amazing. Properties look amazing as well, and I will absolutely explore that in a bit more depth later in the chat, I think as well. But actually, what I really want to do is kind of take you all the way back, long before you were ever a CEO of a growing boutique hotel company. But how did you get involved in hospitality in the first place?
By total accident. I uh,
The usual story.
I well, I sometimes like to say that I'm a bit of a fraud because officially I've actually never worked in a hotel in my life.
Okay.
Um, but I started my career in retail and worked in retail, which was an amazing experience. I met with someone when I was 18 years old who really gave me a chance, and ended up opening a few stores with him. And there's a lot of crossover between retail and hospitality, starting that when you're on the floor you have to be on your feet and smile, right? So that starts there. But also, kind of attention to detail, employee client experience, and that was great. And then I met this group who were doing representation of hotels kind of on the sales and marketing side, and joined them when I felt it was time for a new chapter in my life. And that's how I started in the hotel space, really on the sales and marketing side, and caught the bug quite quickly for it, and became just so passionate about the industry. And then I've had a career that took me then from the investment side of the business to the private equity side to the business, to developing a hotel group. And now I've been privileged enough that it's my third stint being a CEO of a hotel group.
Yeah, yeah. So how does somebody who's starts out in sales and marketing get involved in the investment side of things? Because it's a very different skill set, I would imagine.
Yeah, I went back to business school a little bit for that purpose. I wanted to kind of open up optionality for me in my career. And then right out of business school, like a lot of people do, I went to work at an investment bank that only focused on hotels. I did that for about 5 minutes. I was never meant to be a banker. And then got an opportunity to go work for a private equity group that was doing some amazing projects in Europe. It was a Qatari backed group, and did that for a couple of years. And then I really got the chance of a lifetime. I joined a very large real estate group that had dabbled in hotels, but in no real serious way in the past. And over a decade, we went from being owners to being developers to being operators, and created this hotel group called Lore Group that still exists today. And again, I started the joke when I started day one was that I was the head of hotels and I was a team of one of one. And by the time I left, we were well over 1,000, and running some pretty iconic hotels. And that was just an incredible decade and an incredible experience to be part of. And then soon after, KSL bought this business in Amsterdam, and I took it over with a vision to reinvent it and grow it. But on the back of the recovery of COVID, we did incredibly well and exited that business pretty early on, about 2.5 years into the investment. And then here I am now at Baumier. In a business that's at an interesting life cycle, right? There's a lot of people that deserve a lot of credit before me at Baumier that, that kind of created the ethos of the brand and the development of some of these properties, but felt that we were at a stage where there was a lot of interesting things left to do with our existing portfolio and a lot of work to do, kind of redefining what the future of Baumier should look like.
Yeah, yeah, and well, I suppose the key point there is evolution, and that is probably an inevitable part of when the leadership changes. But and I suppose the guidance still comes from the ownership, really, in terms of direction of travel. But still, whenever you take or strip out the senior leadership and change it for someone else, there's an inevitability about some kind of evolution that comes with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say two things to that. One is, hotels are a funny little beast, right? They're never finished, right? There's always something to do in a hotel, right? You always have to improve, evolve, right? React to what guests want, what employees want, and that's an exciting part of our business, right? That we're never standing still. And in the context of a lot of the hotels that I've got to work on in my career, right? And I've never had a chance of doing a new build. I've always run on hotel group and hotels where it's all about hotels that I've been there, right? And you're kind of just writing the next chapter, right? Of there's been a lot of history and DNA before you, and there hopefully you can hold on to everything that was great from that and just build on that. And that's what I'm trying to do at Baumier, right? Is holding on really tight to some of the great things that were done in recent years to get the group to where it is today. But then also, built on that to be significantly better and have the ability to do better by our employees, really create magic for our guests and supercharge our growth.
Absolutely. Can you remember a time earlier on in your career where you thought to yourself, "Okay, I'm in now, and I've got the spark for this now"? Because I think having the spark is a necessary part of your own development, right? I mean, you're probably
Yeah.
going to develop a lot quicker if you've got that something that ignites you.
Yeah, I caught the bug very early on, as far as like I really gravitated towards the industry and really felt that was the space I wanted to be in. For me, a breakthrough was about 2, 3 years out of business school when I worked in private equity and we were working on some big developments. And even though at that time, I wasn't the one driving the decisions, right? I was doing a lot more, listening and learning. I had a bit of a breakthrough where I felt that, unlike most people, wherever they sat in an organization, right, that I knew how to use both sides of my brains, right? That I had both kind of an analytical side and a creative side. And that gave me the start of a little bit of confidence, and it gave me the desire to go and put myself in a position where I could stand out because I felt I had that ability.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I find that really, really fascinating because, as you say, they both of those individual roles require different skill sets, as we've kind of already established. But how do you get the balance between being creative, which is great and an inevitable part again of the evolution of a brand or whatever, but also then applying commerciality to that creativity? Is that something you kind of learn with experience?
I mean, listen, I will say that what I love about getting up every morning and doing what I'm doing, right, is I'm not doing one thing any given day, right? I am doing multiple things, right? I can go from a meeting to discuss a new acquisition, to a meeting to discuss budgets, to a meeting to discuss design, to a meeting to discuss how we can be better operationally, to how do we become a better employer, right? So that variety of things that I get to work on really excites me, and really excites me in my role in having to make sure that the sum of the parts add up to something that is going to create value and create magic. finding that balance is never easy. As much as I really believe that with all the weaknesses that I have, that my strength is using both sides of my brain. We still have strength and weaknesses, and I think the hardest part of finding the balance is making sure that you don't shy away from the things that are not as natural to you when you run a business, and no matter what, you have to handle every part of the business. With that said, right, and I should have said that first, right, it starts with surrounding yourself with people that are better and smarter than me, that can also really make it happen in a lot of part of the business, without I like to always be involved, but with limited involvement, given the talent that's surrounding me.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've learned as I get older is it's not very difficult to find people that are smarter and better than I am in quite a lot of different things.
I'm not afraid to say this, right? I think when I started being a real leader in this industry, I probably didn't have the comfort that I needed to have to surround myself with people that were smarter than me. And now all I want to do is work with people that are way smarter than me. And to your point, it's not that hard to find a lot of the time. So that works just out fine. But yeah, I mean, surrounding yourself with talent is just everything.
Yeah,
It's teamwork, right? There's a lot of moving part to doing what we do.
yeah, and there's no way in the world that you can have success on your own, right? In an organization that has multiple hundreds of employees, that you cannot be an island in that scenario. You have to enlist the help of others to get everybody to rise together.
Yeah, I view my role, setting the right culture in a group is critical, right? You want people with different skill sets, you want people with different personalities around you and filtering throughout our hotels, and you want to create an environment that allows that to shine, right? But there has to be a common kind of behaviors and values that we all adhere to in order to move together as a team, right? And I certainly view it to be my responsibility to not only lead by example, but to provide clarity on what that is in a business. After I never find a great way to articulate this, but I certainly also view my role that in any given day, I need to try to worry about really big things or really small things, right? And making sure that the business is well structured with really good people, so that the day to day is not dependent on someone like me, that frankly are a lot of people that are better at it than I am.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a really interesting part of human development, I suppose, when you're rising up the ranks, is that at what point do you realize this exactly everything that you've just said? Like, does it just come to you in a moment, or does somebody mentor you into that position? And in your case, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the best way you learn is by making mistakes, right? There's no doubt about it. And I've made plenty of mistakes in my career, right? And I think how you bounce back from it is what shows character. And I'm still amazed that you get to a point where you're like, oh, have I made all the mistakes? But I still find new ones to make. I continue to find new ones to make. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a very curious individual, right? So I've certainly learned from a lot of people, and I've learned from a lot of situation. Like I said, I've certainly learned from mistakes that I've made in the past. So I don't think, I've never had this kind of eureka moment where I'm like, oh, that's it, I'm ready. It's a journey, right? And kind, to be honest, it's what makes it fun, right?
Yeah.
And I've now been at Bomia for 6 months, and it's been great, right? And again, right, new challenges, new environment. I'm still learning. Hopefully, my past experience is adding value, and it's all part of the fun.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really interesting point you raise, actually, around that. Even for senior leaders within any industry, not just hospitality, like nobody really speaks about that transition from one business to another, where you move from one culture to another. It can be completely different. You move from one strategy to another. It can be completely different. A different marketplace, different set of people, different ownership. All of these things and as a leader in your position, the expectation is that, you know, day one, go. You hit the ground running. And yeah, so how do you learn to manage? This is turning into a business podcast. Never thought I'd do that.
Yeah.
The how do you manage that transition when the level of expectation changes as soon as you move buildings?
Yeah, that's a really good question, right? First of all, I go back to curiosity, right? I mean, the for me, my early time in any hotel group, I'm just taking it all in, right? I'm observing, I'm asking a lot of questions, right? And while, I've been known to be quite eager to get things going, right? Like you have to take the time to understand the environment that you're in. You can't take too much time, you can't learn everything, right? But you got to take some time and really ask a lot of a question and do a lot of observing, right? Finding that balance between really kind of taking from your past experience where you can just apply something that you've done somewhere else and doing it in a new environment, but also learning that something that you've done successfully in an old environment is just not going to fly or work in this environment is an art, not a science, right? And you know, I find more comfort as I get a little older now to I don't have to get it all right? I just have to get it more right than wrong, right?
Yeah,
But certainly I've had a couple of hard lessons and now understand that very well that when you go to a different culture, so for example, from a Dutch business to a French business, when you are dealing with different type of hotels, different type of people, different type of environments, that even sometime when you're trying to do the same thing, you need to have a different approach for it to be filtered and implemented in a business differently. But again, right, it's part of what makes a role like mine exciting.
yeah, and as you said, you know, the journey itself then becomes really interesting, right? Because you're, I mean, it's not even just a case of no 2 days are really the same. It's like no 2 weeks, months, years are ever really the same because you're one, your business is in a state of positive flux, and two, your career's in a state of positive, hopefully always positive flux as well, and the inevitability of that, the change that comes with that, just keeps it. What's the saying? A change is as good as a rest sometimes. And especially, you know, as you climb the ranks, there's a saying that was told to me. I think it was my father actually gave me this one all the way back at the beginning of my career, but it sounds like it still rings true even when you hit the senior ranks of your career, is that when you start somewhere, in the first instance, keep your eyes and your ears open and your mouth shut. Like, you'll learn, like absorb. You'll learn from anyone and everyone that you come into contact with. And then when you've got a sense of what everything is, and who everyone is and where your strengths and weaknesses are, that's the point where you can kind of start to begin to impact with your words and direction.
Yeah, and it's I'm someone who can talk a lot, right? I've been known to talk a lot. I'm very self-aware of it. But while I talk a lot, I listen twice as much still. I'm always, whether I'm listening with my eyes or my ears, right? Because in our hotels, you need different senses sometimes to be listening. I'm always observing and always listening, and I'm not doing it kind of like as in a way that feels like homework, right? It's very natural to me, and it's frankly it just pays dividends. It just allows me to be better at my job.
Yeah. Something I want to pick up on, which I heard, you've mentioned this actually just in passing, which means it must be part of your psyche. 3 times now I've counted where you've spoken about the employee experience, which leads me to just automatically conclude that this is something that you take seriously. And as somebody who takes it very seriously as well, it's always a joy to hear somebody talk about that as if it's, a very, very centric part of any business strategy, because I think we all probably can agree that, if you don't have a strong employee experience, then it doesn't really matter what else you do with your business.
Yeah, I don't love in our industry that we spend a lot of time talking about guest experience, which is incredibly relevant and important,
Yeah,
but that we a lot of the time fail to understand that it actually starts with employee experience. It is absolutely impossible to provide good guest experience without a good employee experience first. And I'm hyper aware that, we we deploy a lot of capital and make very serious decision around acquiring a hotel, and a lot of, again, thoughtfulness, time, energy into repositioning, capexing, investing in a hotel, right? And spend a lot of money in thinking about marketing and PR and sales strategy around the hotel. But at the end of the day, 99.9% of the time, what creates magic in a hotel, right? Once you've gone that person in, is that employee that interacts with other employees first, which we talk about this a lot in Beaumier in recent months, but then with the guests, right? So no matter how much time we're investing in employee experience, we're not investing enough, because they're the heart of of everything that we do, right? You look at the type of hotels that Beaumier had, but unless you kind of go to the extreme of kind of these IT automated type hotels, the human contact with people, is way more important than any design decision you can make in a hotel. And again, sorry if they sound a little bit like sound bites, but something very dear to my heart, right? We spend so much time thinking about how a hotel looks, right? And again, it is incredibly important, but actually how a hotel feel is what's important, right? There are things that you need to do outside the employee experience that make a difference for that, from, how comfortable it is in a space, and, how some things doesn't have to feel like a museum, and for people to kind of create their own experiences and be themselves when they're in our hotels. But at the end of the day, human contact and pleasant human contact is ultimately what makes you feel good. So, if we can have our employees understand that they need to be there for one another, right, and make each other feel good, because that starts there, right? Because that's not an individual journey to make an employee feel good. That's very powerful. And then, if we can provide them with the environment, the tools, the training, the rewards, right, to create magic in our hotels and enjoy doing that, we're winning.
Five-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And actually, I'm reminded of something which I think you and I spoke about when we did our icebreaker call, which was the changing attitudes of the workforce as well. I mean, I think we can probably all agree again that, the attitudes especially in the people who are coming into the workforce now is very different from when I joined the workforce. And so, I've always believed that as an industry, we cannot resist that. Yes, we can ask them to bend a little bit to come to the party, but we have to bend as an industry to effectively what is a consumer trend, for want of a better phrase, and the consumers in this case are our team members. But I remember you talking about the difference in cultural understanding of this as well, in the sense that I think you said, I'm pretty sure it was you that said this, that in Europe now, from an employer perspective, there's this realization that actually somebody might join your organization as a waiter or a chef or whatever they come and join you as, but they might also have a t-shirt business on the side, or their little side gig or whatever. And I think for a long time, certainly in the UK, I think we're coming around to this, but we're still a very long way away from it. There is this realization that actually flexibility to the needs of the individual is going to be the big win now. And when you nail that somehow, I don't have the answers on this podcast, but that's when the gold will happen. That's when people will feel truly heard and listened and will be engaged with your business, and sparks can fly in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the chance to work on both in the US and in Europe, right? And being a little stereotypical, until call it a decade plus ago, in the US, nobody has a profession, everybody has a job, right? The US is a world where somebody's an electrician one year, a taxi driver the following year, and the waiter another year. But what the US had going for themselves is a real kind of salesmanship culture that translated pretty well into hospitality, right? That kind of like service. Everybody has a job as a teenager, waiting tables and being a hostess somewhere in the US. Again, I'm being kind of stereotypical to,
Yeah.
to prove a point, right? Where Europe, until a decade plus ago, being a waiter was a profession, not just a job, right? And you went to a French brasserie in Paris, right? And you could have somebody who had been a waiter for 30 years and was incredibly proud of what they do, right? And all of that, both in the US and in the Europe, is kind of evolving and changing, right? And to your point now, you got a lot more people who are like, I'm very happy to be a waiter for the summer season, but I want to travel the rest of the year, or I have a t-shirt business on the side, and we're not there to try to change that, right? We need to evolve to try to adapt and still make it exciting to be part of our space, and exciting for people to work with us and feel like there's career development if that's what they're after. Feel like there's flexibility if that's what they're after. And to your point, right, there's no one size fit all strategy now when it comes to recruiting and hospitality. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you can attempt it, but you'll get left behind very, very quickly, I think. And this is, for me, especially prevalent post-COVID as well, where I think the world, for a moment at least, pressed the reset button and kind of tried to reestablish what was important to them. And the them being every individual that walks the planet who experienced whatever COVID experience gave them. But yeah, the inevitability of that is that there has to be some kind of change that comes on the back of that circuit breaker moment that happens where, I mean, I started a podcast. I never have thought of doing that beforehand, because people just, you adapt to what's happening around you. And this is something I always have believed in as well, is that I don't think we ever give ourselves enough credit as a species as to just how adaptable we can be when placed in a position of necessity to do so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there wasn't really a question in there, was it? That was just me trying to sound
I'm
intellectual.
agreeing with you, Phil.
That's great. That's a good start. Yes, I'm interested to explore in your journey so far any, like, anecdotal moments whereby you can just remember a really funny scenario, maybe not funny in the moment, but you can look back on it now with humor, or a moment whereby you just felt completely out of your depth and how you got around that. I mean, did you have any anecdotes of anything like that can give people hope that becoming a CEO will be difficult, but interesting at the same time?
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot here a little bit. I'll try to dig out a couple of examples, but I'll give you a story that was successful and one that wasn't so much.
Perfect.
Starting with something successful, I got to work on, and lead the repositioning of this hotel in Amsterdam called the Pulitzer, which is really this landmark hotel in
Stunning. Yeah.
Amsterdam, and got to work with a really talented group of people, and it's kind of this quintessential Dutch experience hotel, and we were trying to work on a little detail of something that we wanted to put in the rooms, right? And I kept driving the teams crazy, and I'm like, I want to know, like, what's quintessential Amsterdam? What is it, something that we can put in the room, right? And one day, somebody who wasn't particularly overly involved in the hotel said, in Amsterdam, when you're like 5, 6 years old, or all over the Netherlands, everybody rides a bike here. You're giving this little bike kit, right? That you basically keep for the rest of your life. And literally every Dutch person in the world has it. And I
Right.
said, what? That's really cute. And we ordered the kit, and it's quite a pretty kit. It's a little metal case. It's really sweet, really. And I said, you know what? We're going to put this in the rooms. Everybody in the project was like, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Who's going to care about having a little bike kit in the room? Nobody's going to use it. Nobody's going to take it, right? Fast forward a couple of years, I don't think we had a PR article that didn't mention that little bike kit,
Really?
right? So it became, so anytime I needed to kind of like flex my muscles in a really kind of jokey way, I was like, but I'm like, the bike kit was my
Yeah,
idea,
I'm a bike kit guy. Yeah.
Meanwhile, there were hundreds of bigger and more important ideas. So, you find that these like little moments, right, that you never think of. And then, an anecdote and kind of going back to something we were talking about a little earlier, right? I had really grown into a leadership role doing projects in Europe and then started doing projects in the United States and felt like we had really developed a great blueprint on how to bring a team of external consultants together, bring a team of internal people together to go ahead and create magic and kind of repositioning hotels. And I was very insistent in being like, you know what, we know how to do this, we have the blueprint. And then I got to the US, and it took me a year to realize that I was just doing it wrong, because what worked in Europe just didn't work in the US.
Right.
And that the relationships we had with our consultants there were very different than the relationships we had with our consultants in Europe. So, is it an anecdote? I don't know, but it's certainly something that has stayed with me over the years in what was a pretty big mistake of thinking, you have it worked out, but actually it doesn't work out that way everywhere you are.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the lesson in both of those stories feels like boldness is kind of the underriding theme of both of those stories. Is the one, on the one hand, you had to be bold with this really, kind of left field idea around putting a bike. I mean, left field and to a certain extent, I suppose, but on the other hand, that speaks to the location that you're in and the benefits of being bold. And then the other side of that is the flip side of being bold. When you feel like at what point do you accept with your boldness that actually it's not worked, and we have to change tact. And I suppose that's just something that experience gives you. I guess you have to live the mistake and hope that somebody backs you in the moment where to the point where you can go, okay, I think we made an error here, and I think we need to change tact.
Yeah, and I think it's, and again, these are the two examples that I kind of come to my head, right? There's many more, but when I think now of my, short tenure at Beaumier so far, I certainly feel like these type of experiences have really served me to become, a better leader, better manager, a better creator, a better partner, better collaborator. And while, again, it's always a work in progress, I think it has allowed me to come into somewhere that was already kind of along the journey and step in and make a difference a lot quicker.
Yeah, no doubt. I suppose same token, this is a reflective point, I guess, looking back on your career so far. Obviously, you've still got a long way to go before you call it a day, as it
Yeah.
were. But what are you most proud of so far? What's been the thing that you look back on and go, I can't really believe that I was able to achieve that?
Yeah, I'm not somebody that looks back a lot. I'm also not somebody professionally that looks far ahead too much as well, right? I mean, I look far ahead as far as, thinking about, working this business be in 5 to 10 years, right? But I certainly don't think about that personally. I'm pretty in the present, right? And I'm proud of a lot of things that I got to do. I'm proud, but probably what I'm most proud of is watching some people around me and seeing their career flourish. There's a handful of people, even now, two, three people that have joined at Beaumier where, they were part of previous adventures with me. And, watching people grow around you to me is incredibly rewarding. So, if you had to put me on the spot, that's really where I go, more than like, oh, this hotel is amazing and, won all these awards, or, this hotel made that much money, and these things are not nothing, right? It's not like I wasn't proud and wasn't proud to share it with all the people that were involved with that. But, watching people around you become better and smarter than you is a cool thing.
Yeah. And as we've already established, not that difficult to achieve, finding the
Uh,
people who can
yeah, but
sort of open the
when
door
you're
for them.
catching people either at the start, right at the start of their career, or soon after, and you see them evolve, and you bring them in different environment, and you still see them flourish and be successful. That's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. Proud dad moment,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
almost.
I guess. Yeah, not a bad way to put it.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. So let's come back to Beaumier. I promised that we would go back there towards the end of the conversation. Give us a run through of the portfolio in terms of what you've got and kind of your point of difference.
Yeah, so Beaumier currently we've just opened in Wengem in Switzerland. If you don't know Wengem, it really is this magical spot in the Swiss German Alps. It's in a little town where there's no cars. You have to take a little old school train to get there. And we've just opened this hotel called the Grand Belvedere, which it's two buildings with the garden in between, and a swimming pool with views of a valley that's absolutely breathtaking. And the great thing about Vangam is it's as beautiful in the summer as it is in the winter. And I've been going there now for the past few months, and every time you go there, it really just takes your breath away how beautiful the nature is. And we're introducing a kind of hotel that doesn't really exist in the town, and so far it's been super well received, and an exciting hotel now for us to kind of keep improving and ramping up. We then have four hotels in the French Alps, in Megève, two in Val Thorens, and one in Courchevel. That's kind of the legacy of the group. Those hotels have been in the group for at least 7-8 years. They've all been refurbished in kind of the past 4 or 5 years, and that's kind of where the birth of the group comes from, and why actually our corporate offices are in Chambéry at the kind of the bottom of the Alps. We then have three hotels in Provence: Cap Long, Le Galinier, and Lourmarin. Very different type of hotels. Le Moulin is a small property in the village of Lourmarin, which is kind of this angelic little village in Provence. Then Le Galinier is an old house that's right next to the village with this beautiful gardens. And then Caplong is about 15 minutes away on the hills of Bonnieux with these breathtaking views of the Luberon. And it's a 5-hectare domain where where we have a Michelin star restaurant and swimming pool. We've now opened a paddle court. It's a big site. We then have our property on the French Riviera in Les Roches Rouges in Saint Raphael, which again we've just reopened following a pretty big refurbishment and the opening of a new wing. We've increased the key count by 50% there and opened a new beach outlet. And that hotel is the connection to the Mediterranean. You're literally hanging on the water. It's a pretty magical spot, very laid back.
I'm ready. I'm ready for that. I'm ready.
Yeah, you please come and visit. And then we have a property in Ibiza that we opened. This is our third season. I don't know how well you know Ibiza, but we have. I'm pretty comfortable saying we have the best views of any hotel in Ibiza. We're right looking at Esvedra, which is this magnetic rock that just you can't stop staring at, sticking out of the Mediterranean, and a really cute property there that has done really well for us. So that's the portfolio.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I'm in. I'm all in. The thing about Ibiza is such a it's done so well, hasn't it, in terms of rebranding itself? Because like when I was growing up, it was the party island, and people just went there to get trashed, basically. But now there's an awful lot of really fantastic hotel-based activity going on there, and it feels like it's really, I suppose, rewritten its future a little bit in terms of what it now stands for as a destination.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Ibiza kind of has three very distinct crowds, right? That party crowd is still there, and it's stronger and bigger than ever. Actually, they've just opened this nightclub universe where, if you have a chance to kind of read about it, is totally wacko and wild
Right.
of what they're capable of doing. So that crowd is there. You definitely have kind of a wellness crowd. The nature, the yoga, the kind of laid back kind of islandy life that Ibiza has to offer. And then you have a pretty high-end customer that more and more is traveling to Ibiza that doesn't mind tapping into those two other worlds as well, but wants, a great hotel experience and a good beach club and to take a boat to go from Ibiza to Formentera. So it's an interesting island, right? Those three worlds cohabit incredibly well and kind of mix and match quite well. It's a it's a beautiful island that has more and more to offer, and and Petunia is this little magical spot that we inherited, and that I think is providing a great experience for people that are part of it.
Yeah, superb. I mean, what it sounds like, I have, having just driven through Switzerland recently as well, around Interlaken, Grindelwald, that kind of area. The area is, in that part of the world, is stunning. And having looked on the website at your property in Switzerland, I mean, it just looks like, why would you not want to go there? Because it's just, I mean, it just looks incredible. And, in terms of that experience that people will get just by being in wonderful surroundings, it feels like you've absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, great that you've been around the area. You'll need to come and see us in Vengam. I think pictures don't do it justice. It really is. It's that part of the Alps where sometimes the view just is just breathtaking.
Yeah.
And to have had the opportunity to create a hotel where we're providing kind of this soulful luxury and creating an environment again where people can kind of create their own experiences, right? Whether they want to hike all day and kind of use us as a base, or enjoy the hotel and chill and just walk around the village, or come and ski in the winter, or enjoy all kind of those summer activities, is been real fun. Not without its challenge to go build a hotel in a place where they don't allow cars.
For sure.
But a really rewarding project and a great addition to the portfolio.
Yeah, I can only imagine the logistical elements of trying to get whatever it was that you needed to get up the hill to build this thing.
A lot of trains, a lot of helicopters.
Yeah. We actually saw that in as part of that trip. We went to Portofino in Italy, and there was somebody up on a hill was having stuff delivered by helicopter, basically to like the side of a house, basically being delivered to it. So it's a whole world of logistics that I had never comprehended until this little trip that I've just taken.
It's not simple,
No.
but it's rewarding when it's done now.
Yeah, well, what's the saying? Another cliche for the that's what's maybe the fourth cliche of the podcast for me today. But everything that's worth doing is usually difficult. So definitely, it sounds like the outcome far outweighs the challenge in terms of the challenge of getting that off the ground.
Yeah.
How's in terms of the integrating into a community like that when you've got a property like that, not just withstanding the potential influx of tourists that it brings into the area, but how do you get that right in terms of understanding your local community, engaging with it, and being able to kind of be in harmony together, as opposed to just this business that exists?
Yeah, I think this is something that Beaumier has done incredibly well over the years, and certainly one of those great things about Beaumier that we need to hold on really tight, right? And going into neighborhoods, communities, environments where we make a lot of decisions to make sure our neighbor is proud of us. Even at times not the right kind of economic decision, right? It really is part of our DNA to make sure that the locals around us, our neighbors, anything that touches tourism but that touches the locals, that they will not just speak highly of us, but that we are showing respect and work hard to earn their respect as kind of newbies coming in. And certainly always one of our big goals is for them to just be proud that Beaumier has come to the area.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Well, look, did you ever think that you'd become a CEO of a spectacular hotel group like this when you were starting out that career all those years ago?
Like I said, I've never been one to look too far ahead, right? I project far ahead, maybe a bit more in my personal life, but in my career, I've always been very much in the presence. All I can tell you is I feel incredibly fortunate. I get to do something that I love to do. It's not always easy, but I really, I get to work with some incredible people. I get to work on great projects. I get to, visit beautiful hotels. So all in all, yeah, I feel lucky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I've worked hard for it, but I still feel incredibly privileged and lucky.
But I also love the message there, really, in terms of just be present, get your head down, do your best work, and opportunities will present themselves to you. I mean, you don't have to plan. I want to be X, Y, Z by the time I'm 30 years old or whatever. Just crack on, do your best work, and then something will present itself where you just go, okay, that sounds great, let's do that, and then so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, you look back and you go, God, how did I get here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always thinking of the business as a chessboard, right? Because you need to anticipate, strategy wise, where do you want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now? But if I do that well and I get to enjoy myself, I feel like I'll keep progressing and hopefully be lucky enough to work on interesting things with interesting people.
Yeah, very good. So if the business is a chessboard, then your personal career is a game of Snap, the old card game. Live in the moment. We're just here to win, and that's it. But
Yeah.
no, look, Billy, thanks so much for spending some time with me today to talk through your journey. Beaumier sounds incredible, and I wish you guys all the very best with the next phase of your journey in that. And I'll be watching as a fanboy without having yet visited any of your properties, but I am definitely going to make sure that changes in the future.
Well, let's change that. Come and visit, and thanks for your time and thanks for your support. And yeah, it's a great adventure, and look forward to what's ahead for us.
Fantastic. Take care, Billy. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time.
Cheers.
And there we have it. What an epic journey Billy has had to date, and so awesome to spend some time with someone who clearly cares about the industry. A massive thanks to him for coming on the show. We will, of course, be back next week with another awesome journey from hospitality, so have yourselves a cracking week, and I'll see you then.